Premier Panyaza Lesufi has declared a war on the poor, according to Abahlali baseMjondolo, announcing plans to dismantle informal settlements or crush them by deploying forces at 2 in the morning. Criminal syndicates and undocumented migrants are being blamed, despite statistics showing that most shack dwellers are South African citizens. Civil society, spearheaded by Abahlali baseMjondolo, compared the threats to the apartheid-era evictions. Let's examine the failures of the urban housing policy and look at alternatives based on human rights. And speaking to us, representing Abahlali baseMjondolo, is Thapelo Mohapi. Thapelo, good to speak to you. Now, before we engage in this conversation, we're going to throw to a bite where Premier Panyaza Lesufi made the remarks that we are talking about today.
The Executive Lekgotla emphasized the need for coordinated action to prevent illegal and land invasion and ensure compliance with housing and land use regulations. We come to you to declare that unfortunately there are going to be unprecedented number of evictions and dismantling of informal settlement in our province. The number of informal settlements that are mushrooming, even in our urban areas and in some areas within our cities, is now reaching at disturbing levels, and we have no choice but to fight back and push back those that have taken advantage of the legal gaps that are available within this sector. So the new 400 informal settlement that has emerged in the last few months, we are now committing ourselves through the Department of Human Settlement, the Department of Home Affairs, and all law enforcement agencies to dismantle, if not to completely relocate those that we think that need to be formalized. We are of the strong view there is a new organized crime that is happening within the informal settlement sector.
Thapelo, give us your interpretation of Premier Lesufi's call to dismantle settlements. What historical echoes does it raise?
Yes, good afternoon, Hugo. Good afternoon to the viewers. First and foremost, we feel that these comments that were uttered by the Premier were unfortunate, misplaced. It shows somebody who's not attached to the realities on the ground. The many people who are residing in informal settlements are people who are coming from the rural areas to seek better opportunities in the rural areas, and that we already know, and that there are policies that need to be followed. The law, in fact, in this actual fact, as he speaks about people's homes that have been established, that is going to displace children, women, and ordinary South Africans who are looking for employment. So if you are going to demolish and destruct a structure that has already been built, you are then against the Constitution, against what the Supreme Court of Appeal has said, that if I am showing that I need a place to stay and I'm starting to erect a place for my family, and therefore that state should not actually demolish or destruct this. And of course, there are due court processes that needs to be followed in order for anyone to actually demolish or evict anyone. And the courts, of course, will look at the relevant circumstances before they can carry out any eviction. So rendering people homeless in the manner that he's speaking will be unlawful. And of course, if he says 2 a.m., it's actually what the apartheid government used to do, kick doors and in the black communities. And it's very unfortunate for people who claim that they are custodians of this constitution for him to utter such words.
Now, just walk us through what Abahlali's long-standing position on informal settlements and how does this differ from the government's framing?
Well, first and foremost, there are policies that are there to deal with informal settlement. And I think the only crisis and problem that we are having in this country is, of course, the implementation, the upgrading of informal settlement policy. There is a lot that can be done if that law that is actually implemented. First and foremost, we are saying that as poorest of the poor, who are living in informal settlement, we can think for ourselves, and we must be treated with dignity and respect like any other South Africans. The way the Premier speaks, he speaks as if he's not dealing with people who are human beings who have rights like everyone else. And the fact that we use terms like mushroom when we speak about informal settlement, these are people's homes. I may be poor, but that doesn't mean that I'm less of a human. It doesn't mean that because I'm poor, my state of mind has collapsed. I have seen in many cases, Hugo, I've had experiences myself personally where my shack was, gutted by fire. No one wants to live under those conditions. So there's an assumption that shacks are being built because people want to live in them. We don't want to live in. It's what we can afford because the government of that day has failed us in actually providing these. And we have seen in Durban, in most cases, in Ward 12, for instance, where houses that were meant for poor black people were sold by ward councillors on a bonnet of a car. We have seen recently the minister came to allocate people in a Cato manner. Some of the people that were allocated are not the rightful owners of those houses. So there's a lot that needs to be done to root out the corruption and other things that have gone wrong in our housing policies. And if that UISP, the upgrading of informal settlement policy, is implemented, it speaks to all of these issues. And we are saying to Panyaza Lesufi and others in South Africa, let's get an ear. Let's advise government. We are the people who are in crisis, and we know how to get out of this crisis, but only if we are given an ear, we can also help government.
Thapelo, do you get the impression that Premier Lesufi is abdicating his responsibility or that of his government to provide accommodation to some of your members and many other citizens of this country?
Yes, but also, Hugo, we don't want to be passive recipients of houses. We have not said government must provide housing for people who are living in informal settlement. Many of the people living in informal settlement do not qualify for the RDP or the Breaking New Grounds housing projects. And these people need to have a security of tenure. So, for instance, if I know in the shack where I live that that piece of land is given to me, I'm going to own it, I can start slowly building a proper structure. So that's why I'm saying this very policy, if it's implemented properly and government brings in services, incremental services in these shack settlements, and give security of tenure to the people who are living in these, and people can slowly start their lives and build. But people are not actually, they don't know how long they're going to be there. They are promised to be relocated, and that never happens. 20 years have gone, and people are living, in places like Kennedy, where every year you at least have 5 shack fires a year. So it's unbearable. We don't want to live under these conditions. And Abahlali baseMjondolo were formed for that very purpose, to say, government, give us an ear. We can actually sort out the issues that people are facing in the informal settlements together, not necessarily by government talking about us, without us. We want to be on the table. We want to advise government how to deal with this crisis, rather than to have government coming out and speaking about us in the manner that Panyaza Lesufi has spoken, without having spoken to us.
Very quickly, Thapelo, the Premier has declared a war of sorts on informal settlements. Are you engaging with the Premier? Are you engaging with his office? Obviously, it's paramount that there is some conversation before the dismantling occurs.
Yes, Hugo, we, with other civil society organizations, have in fact called on the Premier, and we will continue to make this call to the Premier. We want to have a meaningful engagement. Gone are the days where government speaks about the people without the people. We want to be on the table. We want to advise government. We don't want to be passive recipients. Durban alone, you have more than 700 shack settlements, communities. The same applies in Johannesburg, where you have the backlog of more than 300,000 people on the housing list. Cape Town, we still have the same problems. And we are saying to government, come on the table, let's talk about this, how we can actually help one another. And the people who are in crisis ourselves can bring solutions to this. But if we are going to encourage people to not allow policies in South Africa to work, because some of the people who are tenderpreneurs wants the status to remain as it is, so that they get tendering system to bring in water tankers, to bring in the mobile toilets and so forth. And those people don't want development to happen because they are benefiting out of people's suffering. And we are saying this time around, government must involve us, must include us in the table, so that we can provide together decent housing for the poor and marginalized.
Thapelo Mohapi, representing Abahlali baseMjondolo, speaking to us around what he says is a war that has been declared by Premier Panyaza Lesufi.